Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Kamish Orr, and welcome back to something I like to call Stories from the Maelstrom, a recap of the day's games for this past week of real time. We start in Oakland as the Detroit Rockets play the final game of a two-game series against the Oakland Jacks. And Bob Feller continues to struggle. He goes 7 innings in this one, allows 14 hits and 6 earned runs. Now, Detroit does have one of the, if not the best offense in the league, so not surprising that they would have a lot of hits and runs here. But Bob Feller just hasn't had it this season. His ERA after this one is 7.5. But I guess the main story is Roger Clemens had a good outing. He only allowed 2 earned runs on 5 hits in 7 innings. Every Detroit batter had a hit. Kenny Lofton was 3 for 5 in the leadoff spot. Ichiro Suzuki, 2 for 5 to extend his hitting streak to 19 games now. He had a couple of singles in this one. Detroit scored 3 early on in the 3rd inning. Oakland got a run back in the 4th and a run back in the 5th. But then Detroit scored 2 more runs in the 6th and 2 in the 7th to extend that lead to 7-2. Urban Shocker did come in the 8th inning in relief. He allowed a 3-run homer to Mickey Cochran, which cut the lead to 7-5. He walked Reggie Jackson and had a few words with the ump and got ejected there in the 8th inning, which was probably for the best. Dan Quisenberry came in to strike out Minnie Minoso there, and then Tom Henke came in the 9th, pitched a perfect 9th to pick up his 7th save. The win moved Detroit to 18-14, dropped the Oakland Jacks to 14-17. This win actually moved Detroit into a tie for first place with Boston, who hadn't played yet today. So we'll see the results of that here in a second. Heading over to Houston as the Chicago Docks face off against the Houston Hoots. This is a battle of a couple of aces here. Dwight Gooden facing off against Bob Gibson, and they both delivered in this game. Gibson actually went the distance, allowing just 2 earned runs over 9 innings, just 6 hits, striking out 7. He did walk 5. Unfortunately, he was on the losing side of this one, as Todd Helton had a 2-run homer in the 3rd inning to give Chicago their only runs of the game. Meanwhile, Dwight Gooden, who has struggled a little bit this season, he pitched into the 9th himself. He had allowed just 1 earned run there in the bottom of the 7th on an RBI single from Gary Carter, scoring Ryan Sandberg. He had allowed just 4 hits going into the 9th inning, struck out Ryan Sandberg. When Gary Carter singled, they went to the bullpen with such a close game so that they didn't blow things, and Billy Wagner came in and delivered, inducing a ground out from Roberto Clemente and then striking out Mike Schmidt to end the game to pick up his 8th save. Chicago improves to 11-21. Still, I believe the worst worst record in the league. Houston falls to 13-19. They're not too much better in this 2-1 game, low scoring game with both aces showing their stuff. Heading over to New York as the Boston Splinters face off against the New York Swats. And Boston controlled this one pretty much from start to finish. Gaylord Perry took a shutout into the 9th in this one. Stan Kovaleski for New York allowed runs in the 1st inning right away, with Lou Gehrig had an RBI double scoring, 2 RBIs actually. They scored again in the 5th on a solo shot from Ted Williams. And then Williams would actually hit a 2-run shot in the 9th. He was 4 for 5 in this game with 2 homers, 3 RBI, scored 3 runs, bringing his average up to 411, leading the league in batting average. Let's see if he can maintain that average as the season moves on. And as I said, Boston was ahead 8-0 in the 9th inning. Perry stayed in there. He had a 4-hitter going into the ninth, and then he started to tire a little bit, allowing singles to Ken Griffey Jr. and Jimmy Fox, or excuse me, Jimmy Fox actually doubled in Ken Griffey Jr. For the first run for the Swats in the game. Harold Baines popped out to the catcher, but then Roberto Alomar had a single to put runners on first and third. When Ty Cobb hit another single, that's when Boston went to remove Perry from the game and bring in Lefty Grove, who was able to get out of the rest of the inning. 3 earned runs there for Gaylord Perry, all in the ninth inning. He allowed 4 of his 8 hits in the ninth as well, but he does pick up the win. He's 5-2 now with a very great ERA. Stan Kovaleski still looking for his first win. He drops to 0-3. And Boston improves to 18-13 to retake first place by half a game. New York falls to 13-19. New York pitching problems continue to show themselves, something they've struggled with all season, and doesn't look to be getting any better here in the second half of the season. Finally, we head to St. Louis as the Los Angeles Dynamos faced off against the St. Louis Wizards. And L.A. St. Louis with the best record in the entire league, but they have had issues lately, and L.A. Continue to give them problems. Robin Roberts, who had been one of the better pitchers, or if not, probably in the top 5 pitchers in the league, has struggled the last couple of outings, and this one was no exception. He did go 6 2/3 in this one, but he did allow 7 earned runs. LA put together runs in the first 4 innings of this one, starting off with Chuck Klein driving in 2 with a double in the first inning. Joe Morgan hit a solo shot there in the second. Willie Mays hit a 2-run homer in the third, and then Joe Morgan had another solo shot in the fourth to score 6 of their runs. St. Louis had a run in the first, but then didn't score again until the 7th inning when they put up a couple more. But by then, the game was kind of getting out of hand, 7-3 at that point. Jesse Haynes came in for the Wizards and allowed 2 more runs. Willie Mays had his second home run of the game, another 2-run shot in the ninth. And so both Joe Morgan and Willie Mays had 2 homers apiece. Joe Morgan, I believe this extends his hitting streak to 18 games. He's keeping up there with Ichiro. He had a very slow start to the season, was batting below 200, but in this with this hitting streak that he has going on, he's raised its average to 292. Meanwhile, Pete Alexander for the Dynamos collects his first win. 3 earned runs only allowed in 8 innings, and so he's 1-0. Robin Roberts drops his 3rd game. And L.A. cuts the St. Louis lead in the National League. They improved to 18-14, and St. Louis falls to 22-10. Still one of the best records, still the best record in the entire league, but they have not had a good stretch here recently. Now, Willie McCovey was scratched from the lineup early on. He had an off-the-field injury, and he'll miss a few games, actually. Orlando Cepeda taking his place in the lineup for the Wizards. So if we head over to the standings, we can see that St. Louis is only 4-6 in their last 10 games, whereas LA is 7-3. They've cut the St. Louis lead by 3 games just here in the last 10 to 4 games. So St. Louis still has a 4-game lead on LA in the National League. LA's won 3 straight, including these last 2 against St. Louis. In fact, LA has won the last 4 games that they've faced the Wizards. So that's something else to consider as we look to continue this second half. St. Louis looked pretty unstoppable in the first half of the season, and they are definitely looking human in the second half. And it's quite possible that LA could catch them. Houston and Chicago both well below 500, but there's still a lot of season left, so who knows what's going to happen. The American League, much closer. Only 5.5 games separate first and last place, so it's still anybody's game there. Though, obviously, Boston and Detroit have to be the favorites in the American League. So, speaking of Boston and Detroit, Boston will be playing Detroit here in the next series 3-game series. LA is facing off against Chicago, so they'll have another chance to gain some ground there. Oakland facing off against New York, and finally, Houston is coming to St. Louis to play the Wizards. Wizards have a chance to turn things around there in that series against one of the worst teams in the National League. So, with all that said, if you want to keep up on the stats and so forth, head over to baseballmaelstrom.com. You can see all the action. You can see the standings, the games, upcoming games, the scores from the last ones, a little paragraph write-up on each game here, and of course you can see the stats by just clicking the Stats tab. So, I appreciate you all coming by and watching. Drop some comments if there's anything in particular you want me to check out or have a future video on. But I think that's all for now. Until next time, have a great evening.